Hi everyone, with HaShem's help, you're listening to another edition of Pele Yoetz, and we're up to the chapter entitled Dot. And Dot, I always say, comes like a trifecta. There's chochmah, there's binah, and there's dot. And the way I've always come to understand it is chochmah is something like you learn in a book. Binah is something that you see, played out, like that lesson you learned played out in front of you in real life. And dot is kind of the takeaway, like what you understand of this whole situation and what you've learned. Imagine reading about childbirth, having childbirth, and then your takeaway, which sometimes is a little bit different from what you read. And sometimes you're like, oh, I get it now. And so that's what dot is. It's that, aha, I get it now. So intelligence, it's really, that's probably the closest, word in English for dot. So we're going to see what the Rav has to say about this, this topic. And it starts out and it says, our sages in Berachot 33a said, it is prohibited to have mercy upon someone who does not have intelligence. Furthermore, they said, and they are quoting Vayikra Rabbah, end of Parak 1, a dead animal is better than a living person who does not possess intelligence. They also said, it is as if the Beit HaMikdash has been rebuilt in the life of someone who has intelligence. And they also said, great is intelligence, therefore it is established as the first of the middle blessings. And so they also quote in Vayikra Rabbah Parak 1:6, if you lack intelligence, what have you acquired? If you've acquired intelligence, what do you lack? In truth, Judaism, the perfection of man and all of the good in this world and the next depend upon intelligence. This is the whole of a man. And really, the Torah is riddled with advice that really leads to intelligence, and this intelligence kind of brings you on the derech emet, the true path. And this is why it's saying that it helps you in this world and in the world to come. So it says, certainly in that which our sages were so severe in the punishment, in the shame of someone who does not possess intelligence, was only said about a person who could have learned, yet because of his own negligence, arrogance, and the following of the Yetzirah, did not do so. The intelligence which is discussed here is not the ability to engage in analytical discourse, for learning is not primary, action is, and this is brought down in Avot 117. One requires intelligence to know and to conduct oneself on the straight path according to the Torah, as befits every Jew. To conduct oneself good and upright character in peace and integrity with every human being, to accept everything with happiness and a good heart, to rejoice in one's portion and act properly, and to do that which is good and straight in the eyes of God and men. This is what forthright intelligence and understanding demand. Indeed, our sages in Sotah 3a remarked, a person does not sin unless the spirit of folly enters him first. So it says, the intelligence which is most urgent for a person to have is to recognize in himself that he does not possess intelligence, and to always seek wisdom from every man. So we learned this in Pirkei Avot, right? Who is a wise man? He who learns from everyone. If you're going to take on the attitude that you know it all, then there's nothing to teach you. And so you remained, in folly all your life, and you never come to the true path because you know it all. So, and we all know someone like this, and sometimes we are guilty of that ourselves. Lord knows I'll be the first to fall on my sword. I probably, I want to say that I hope that every day I become less like this, but for sure, this is something that I also had to work on. Just, you don't know everything. So, all the more so, one should seek understanding from someone who is greater than he in wisdom and years. Additionally, a man can ascertain the straight path from the holy books and their authors. Even if his mind does not agree with theirs, he should nullify his opinion and believe with perfect faith that if their logic seems flawed, the deficiency is his own due to his lack of knowledge and understanding. So I actually want to pause here for a second and kind of touch on something that I know that I've spoken about, like, ad nauseum perhaps, and this is this is going to be some advice from the Rav, and again we're going to chochmah binah dot the advice. You ever go to the shul and you see somebody fighting with the Rav and they're doing it publicly, like the Rav will give a lecture or whatever, he'll teach a class, or he or she will take a class, the Rabbanit, and somebody will come with a question, and they just want to keep fighting their point to be right. And this happens for a lot of reasons. If they don't understand or they don't accept the explanation, they just keep fighting. And I always say, like, it's not good to do that publicly for a lot of reasons. And for one, you may think that you're right, but the people around you may really think you're a jerk, and that your point kind of gets lost in the whole fight. And a lot of times all people can remember is the fact that you're fighting publicly and that you were being really disrespectful. So it's like, what did you really gain from that? I mean, again, I think I've also said that, if you have a problem, you don't understand something, ask the question once politely, if you can. If you feel that you cannot, then you need to pull that rabbi aside and still, to the best of your ability, still state your misunderstanding, politely. There's no reason. I don't understand this. Like, half the time when these same people who are arguing for sure have not read the Torah, and if they did, perhaps they need to read it again, because they probably missed the point of what the Torah was saying, which hence is the reason why they're having this disagreement. But it's never a good idea to do these things in public, and I caution anyone from doing that, as the penalty from Shemaim is a very harsh one. So it says, wisdom reposes in age, and the length of days brings understanding. Of course, this makes total sense. The longer we've been on the earth, the longer we get it. So it says, the evil of man on earth is that he is smart in his own eyes, and his path seems straight to him. Therefore, a wise man should praise his wisdom when he is astute enough to discern that he does not possess intelligence, and he recognizes that he does not fathom his imperfections. The wise man has already said, I have no absolute knowledge other than that I know that I did not know. So, I mean, really, this is what every wise person, this is almost their mantra, is the fact that they realize that they know nothing. Because just when you think you've gotten it, Hashem comes in and opens up a whole new world of understanding. So it says, he also said, I did not know that I knew until I knew that I did not know. Therefore, said Shlomo Melech in Kohelet 1:18, in his wisdom, one who increases knowledge increases pain, because he appreciates more his imperfection, degradation, and lowliness. All of this is in regards to the matters of Shemaim. However, in matters of this world, increasing knowledge will bring joy and happiness and will cause sighing and grief to disappear. This is because, according to the clear understanding, there is no reason to be upset, demanding, or angry about anything in this world. For someone who has acquired knowledge, it seems as though he is lacking nothing in this world, and as if the world and all its full belongs to him, since anyway it's all in vain and empty pursuit, and everything that God does is for the best. And he'll go on with this in another chapter, but he goes on to say, since everything depends on intelligence, a person must act with enthusiasm to acquire it by listening to advice, learning from holy books, and being diligent in his studies. He should hold this sign in his hand. When he knows that he does not understand anything, then he knows that he has acquired true knowledge. Regarding this, every pious person should pray to God, who benevolently bestows intelligence upon men, that he be graced with wisdom and understanding, so that he knows the way in which to go and the proper action to perform without deficiency. Moreover, in regards to money and health matters, a person requires intelligence. Behold, it is written in Mishlei 24:4, and with intelligence the rooms will be filled with treasures, and is written in Kohelet 7:12, and wisdom will give life to those who possess it. Even though it is written in the same place, bread does not come to the wise, and in Mishlei 30:22, the rogue is satiated with bread. The reconciliation of this apparent contradiction is that there are three kinds of heavenly decrees. Sometimes it is decreed that a person must be rich. About a person, it says in Shmuel 1:2-7, even uplifts, that is the Kadosh Baruch Hu, he uplifts a person even against his will. Likewise, if it is decreed that a person should be alive and robust, even if he passes through raging waters, he will not be swept away. Even if he passes through fire, he will not be singed. If it is decreed that he should be poor, die, or afflicted with suffering, all of his efforts and strategies to contravene the heavenly decree will be to no avail, because there it will not cease to be a poor man among you. If he attempts to protect his body, for not does he defend himself, he will not be able to nullify the decree of the one who dwells on high, for the hope of man is but the worm. So, a lot of times, too, this is the thing that we kind of get tripped up on. When we're coming back to this life, there's a good chance. I want to say there's like a 99.999999% chance that you're coming back. It's not your first time to the rodeo. And part of whether, you're rich, you're poor, you're going to be sickly, that's all decreed from Shemaim. Because this is all part of your particular tikkun. So sometimes it kind of is, it's a waste of time to be chasing after what the next one has, because it has nothing to do with your tikkun. Okay? So, sometimes too, I get this question, to be quite honest with you, a lot of people that say, are you mad that you had to convert and then you found out you were Jewish? And I said, no, that was part of my tikkun, right? The way we broke is the way we fix it. Perhaps in another life, I did the opposite. So now this is the way I have to fix it. So no, I'm not mad that I found out later on, oh, you were already Jewish. No, that's just part of my tikkun, and it makes for a great story. So, however, there are people upon whom the decree is that they should have life, peace, and wealth according to the degree of their cleverness, effort, and self-protection and conduct. Therefore, a person needs to be concerned, perhaps, that the divine wisdom has decreed that he should be treated according to his attitude and efforts. As such, he must go to work and analyze well according to his understanding on which path lies success, in order to bring provisions for his house and to preserve his health. So we still have to make our efforts, right? As much as everything has been decreed, we still have to make the efforts. Hashem likes to work through nature. We have to put in the efforts, and from there, we see whether, and I think, if you're around 40 plus, you're starting to see, right? Perhaps I was not, destined for X, Y, and Z. So, you kind of put your efforts in, and by now you're starting to see, what the path is. So it says, God will grant that which is good on condition that he not defer the service of his maker for the sake of making money, that he not toil to become rich in something which is prohibited, and that he does not disregard the Torah in order to excessively protect his body. This is certainly something that God did not command, that will have a negative impact and that prevents the good from happening. So, always, what the Torah is always saying, and what Hashem is saying, if you follow my path, you follow my Torah, it will be well with you. When you start deviating, very easy to do, because the Yetzer Hara is very tricky. And I'm going through a new series, Duties of the Heart, to kind of, really study, these little tricks, and those things that we say in our mind, like, did I say that? Did the Yetzer Hara say it? How do I know? Blah, blah, blah. It's very easy to fall into a trap. Even the most learned people fall into this trap. So it says, thus can be compared to someone who extinguishes a fire with straw, who only increases the blaze. So, it's like a battle in futility. So it says, all that has been said applies to someone who does not do the will of Shemaim. He needs to conduct himself according with the natural order of the universe. A person whose work is primary in his life will be placed under the control of the natural order. So if you're going to take the position, I got this, I'm doing this of my own accord, thanks a lot, Hashem, I'll call you when I need you, then measure for measure, Hashem's going to say, I'll let you have at it, and good luck with all the challenges I put in your path. So it says, however, the person who fears God, whose sole desire is in the Torah and the mitzvot, and makes his Torah primary and his work temporal, God will command his blessing upon him, emanating from above the zodiac, and his body will be healthy and vigorously robust. Even if they endure suffering, toil, and exertion, those who hope in God will have an ever-renewed strength, possession, and wealth, will fill their homes without any deficiency, whether through their own devices or not. This is the meaning of the verse in Mishlei 16:20, one who undertakes a matter wisely will find good, and one who trusts in God will be prosperous. It means to say that a person who does not understand but trusts in God will be prosperous. And I have to tell you, I want to tell you this quick story because that's the end of this chapter. And I want to tell you a quick story that is my chochmah binah dot moment when it comes to this. And it's funny because after I had come back from Spain, wrote this book, finished the docuseries, did all kinds of like radio and after that, I was in this job and I was working from home, and I thought it was great because it allowed me to do the book, it allowed me to do all these things. But I thought, I'm not so keen on the job, right? And I thought, I'm going to start looking out for another job. And all of a sudden, I became ill. I mean, I thought I had come out of remission from lupus and myasthenia gravis. And for those of you who know my story, you know that I was critically ill at one point in my life, and I had become ill again. And it was coming to this point that it was becoming critically ill again. So I went to the doctor, and I was not, I was not out of remission, but I had a new problem, and that problem kind of knocked me out. Like I literally, so there was no way to leave the job, not only because of the insurance, but because of the fact that it was a job I can do from home. So the flexibility was there. And as soon as I started to come out, the coronavirus hit. And because we were a firm that worked, like the majority of everyone worked from home, Baruch HaShem, we're kind of not as affected as many people. So you see, in following, Hashem's path, it's kind of like he forced me into my own blessing. Like I did not know that there was going to be this pandemic going on in the world, but Hashem did know that. So, at the time when you think you're suffering, why am I going through this? And then, when you just step a little bit further and you just peek back and you're like, oh, wow, that worked out. And if you really stop to think, a lot of times in your life, most things in your life, you can really say, oh, wow, that worked out exactly the way it was supposed to work out. So the moral of this story is that Hashem really knows what he's doing. And just sit tight. If you don't understand something, just sit tight. Know that everything will be for good and that Hashem will work it all out. So that's it for today, and I hope we'll all be together again soon. Bezrat Hashem.
If you've enjoyed this video or know someone who would, please share it. Tzikul mitzvot.